Katie Halper joins us again on the mother of all talk shows. We were talking, Katie, to a rabbi, Rabbi Miviser, earlier. We were talking about this phenomenon. It's not a new phenomenon. You've represented it for many, many years, young as you are. But its size is a new phenomenon. The size and militancy of this new constituency. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I think that you're referring to the Jewish voices out there who are saying, not in our name, who are criticizing what Israel's doing, calling out Israel's crimes against humanity, the genocide that they're inflicting right now on the people of Gaza, and of course, America's role kind of aiding and abetting that. And as you said, there have been Jews who have been outspoken on this issue for years, but what's new is that we see these Jewish organizations like If Not Now, and especially Jewish Voice for Peace, that are at the forefront, organizing these rallies. I was at the Statue of Liberty on Monday. There was a really moving protest there where they dropped banners saying, "Ceasefire now, not in our name." And it was beautiful because obviously the Statue of Liberty was the backdrop. They also, these same people, these same organizers had a great protest at Grand Central Station that they took over. I couldn't even get into it because it was blocked by the time I got there. So I was part of the hundreds of people who were on the outside protesting. And so I think what's great is the pushback saying, no, Israel doesn't represent us. AIPAC doesn't represent us. The Anti-Defamation League doesn't represent us.
This is all a bit of a curveball to the American politicians who have always insisted and insist now that they're doing all this, giving all this to defend Jews. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the irony is that, and we talked about this a bit on my show last night on the Katie Halper show, I had Rabbi Brant Rosen, who's part of the Jewish Voice for Peace's Rabbinical Council, and we were talking about that with him and Rosalind Pachesky and Jay Safer, all from Jewish Voice for Peace. We were saying how Israel makes Jews less safe, not safer. They've existed and they've fear-mongered and tried to make it so that Jews feel like they need this ethno-nationalist state to feel safe. But I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that actually Israel, by claiming to represent Jews and doing these things that are so horrific, that anyone who has any compassion for Palestinians sees as what they are, which is crimes against humanity, crimes against international human rights law, war crimes, that doesn't make Jews safer to be associated with this government that, again, claims to speak for us, but in fact doesn't. And of course, the other irony is that it's an anti-Semitic trope. Oh, sorry. Oh, I was just going to say the other irony is that it's an anti-Semitic trope to suggest that all Jews support Israel, right? The dual loyalty trope. The people who always claim that Jews and Zionists are the same thing, those are kind of rabid anti-Semites who constantly refer to Jews as Zionists. They use those terms as if they were interchangeable. And then the government of Israel, and then AIPAC and the ADL. Those are the groups that make it sound like Jews and Zionists are the same thing. And obviously they're not. And that's why it's so great to see all these Jews out there saying, we as Jews oppose what Israel is doing, not in our name. And, you know, there's nothing Jewish about what Israel is doing for people who embrace the values of secular Jewish identity. There's a tradition of radical internationalism. There's a tradition of tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. And then for religious people, there's a lot in the scripture that also opposes this kind of imperialism.
Of course, many Jews are not Zionists, and most Zionists are not Jews.
Yes, that's also
we've
really
got
important.
a perfect example in the duo, maybe the trio, if we include Kennedy, running for president. The three leading candidates, you might say, for president. Two of them are Roman Catholics, and Donald Trump is God knows what, but they are utterly gung-ho. I mean, Israel could not ask for more berserk, unconditional, unequivocal support than being offered by the whole of the mainstream American political spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, Biden ran as someone who was a moral alternative to Donald Trump, right? He ran as the guy who wasn't going to do the Muslim ban, wasn't going to build a wall. He's done some of the wall. And he clearly does not see Palestinians as human beings. I mean, if he did, he wouldn't be silent about what Israel's doing. He wouldn't be providing them with legitimacy, moral legitimacy, political logistics, financing, and of course, arms. I mean, we are complicit in this, in these war crimes, and it's horrible. And I can't imagine what it must be like to be a Palestinian and see how not only does Israel want to literally drive you out, ethnically cleanse you, but all these other governments are complicit in these crimes. I think that's why it's so important to be speaking out, because we need to show that it's not okay, that our government doesn't represent us when it does this, when it aids and abets Israel. And Jews need to be speaking out and saying, Israel doesn't represent us. That government that does not literally represent us, obviously. I don't pay tax dollars to Israel. I pay my tax dollars to America. But I'm indignant and outraged at both of these governments for the crimes that they're committing. And on the one hand, I am paying my taxes to them, and they're committing crimes with my tax money. And then on the other hand, they are claiming that I have some connection to this government that, again, does not represent me and does not represent my Jewish values.
Let's talk about the right for a moment. And the question I have also is
how many more... Yeah.
No, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, it is, what's shocking is that there are people for whom Israel can absolutely do no wrong. I keep seeing these crimes, blowing up a hospital, blowing up a refugee camp, and I keep expecting people to say, okay, now they've gone too far. I've been blindly loyal and blindly supportive of Israel, but now that I've seen this, and now that we have social media and we get to see the images right away, and we have this immediacy that we haven't had before, I keep expecting some people to have these aha moments. And it's incredible that there are people for whom Israel literally can do nothing wrong. There's not a single thing that they can do that they won't say, oh, that's just Israel defending itself, even though everyone knows this isn't self-defense.
Quite. Let's turn to the right for a minute. Kennedy and Biden having been correctly damned. What do you make of this phenomenon that we've ever since 2016, we've been treated to the American right, echoed by the British right, people like Nigel Farage and others on the right in Britain, denouncing wokery, snowflakery, the idea that people can be no platform because they might frighten the sensibilities of others, denouncing the cancel culture, denouncing bans on free speech, restrictions on free speech. Like a switch 4 weeks ago, the vast majority of these very same people have been determined to cancel everyone who raises a critical voice about what Israel is doing in these circumstances. I mean, I've never seen a U-turn performed quite so perfectly ever in my life.
Right. Yeah, they're either total hypocrites who don't believe in this stuff. Well, either way, honestly, let's be honest, there's no either. They're hypocrites. The only question is whether they are hypocrites who are just embracing the critique of cancel culture for opportunist reasons, or they're morally inconsistent and believe in things until it comes to Israel-Palestine. I mean, on the left, you have this phenomenon called PEP, which is Progressive Except on Palestine. So I guess on the right, you have, I don't know, PEP2, which is be Principled Except on Palestine. I mean, I disagree with the right, obviously, but it is instructive to see that these people who claim to be, as you said, kind of, who claim to criticize people's snowflakery and hypersensitivity, and who claim to critique cancellation and deplatforming are fine with it when it comes to Israel-Palestine. So they're exposing themselves as well.
The Congress exposed itself yesterday. The first person to be censured by the House of Representatives was censured for tabling a bill for the abolition of slavery. The second person to be censured was a Democratic congresswoman of Palestinian ethnicity who was censured by the Congress for standing up for her own people. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up that first person who was censured, because I think it shows that Rashida Tlaib is in good company, right? When she was censured along with someone who was an abolitionist who was censured for violating a gag order in the 1800s for daring to speak out against slavery. But you have members of the Congress who voted to censure this woman, the only Palestinian American member of Congress. These same people who are daring to censure her and accusing her of standing for genocide, which is not true. These same people actually are calling for genocide. These same people leading the charges, you have Republicans who have compared Palestinian civilians to Nazis. You have another one who said Palestine would be flattened like a parking garage. People who are not only making genocidal statements, but they're funding the genocide that's happening right now. And all Rashida is doing that they hate is she's putting a literal human face on Palestinians, because this government doesn't want people to see anyone, to have a face that they can match to all these Palestinians who are being ethnically cleansed, who are being bombed, who are being orphaned. These over 10,000 Palestinians by now, and it's probably higher. Children, women, you know, I was watching this doctor from Doctors Without Borders talking about this acronym, WCNSF, I think, Wounded Child, No Surviving Family. Can you imagine these kids who are the only ones to survive a bombing, and then they wake up or they come to or they get out of surgery and there's no one left in their family? This is what our government is paying for right now and doing and providing. And these people have the gall to censure the one person who's standing up and speaking out on behalf of Palestinians in a way that's consistent and principled. And again, they're afraid of her because they know that she puts a human face on this, and because they know that the American people are demanding a ceasefire, and they know that the people who oppose the ceasefire do not represent their constituencies. So they can't have this person standing out there, because she is basically showing them up as the opportunistic hypocrites and genocidal maniacs that they are.
Katie, how can people follow you? How can they support your work?
Well, you can go to youtube.com/The Katie Halper Show. You can follow me on Twitter at Katie Halps. That's letter K, letter T, HALPS. Patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. We've been doing a lot of great shows with guests. I had an all-Jewish panel the other day. I've had on Norman Finkelstein to talk about this, Ali Abunimah at Electronic Intifada. And I'm going to keep focusing on this issue because it's so important to talk about it. And because mainstream media, you know, thank God for shows like yours, which debunk all these talking points and this Hasbara, and actually give people who have the truth to say a chance to speak. So I want to thank you for being part of that movement. I also had on Craig McIver last night, who resigned from the UN over their failure to advocate for Palestinians. So yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Everyone, our whole audience is hereby instructed to follow Katie Halper on all of her platforms. God bless you, Katie.
And if I ever dressed in Dior, if I ever had any Dior products, I would dump Dior. I just don't have any Dior products, but I symbolically dumped Dior.
What are they? What I'm flying blind here. Is Dior perfume or makeup or both?
They're
or what?
Perfume and clothing. They're couture. You know, they're high fashion. Christian Dior, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
Luckily,
Bella Hadid was magnificent. Bella was magnificent in how she stood up for herself, didn't you think?
Yeah, amazing. And it's so pathetic that these people literally have to go to AI to create the kinds of statements that they want, because they can't, of course, like compete with what she's saying. So they need to literally fake it.
Beauty inside and out. Katie Halper, thank you very much indeed
for
joining us.